Welcome back, dear viewers, and we're still having this discussion in our main topic for today with Dr. Youmn Hamaki, Professor of Economics at Ain Shams University, and we're addressing the Egyptian and world economy in light of the upcoming big events, one of which is the 74th session of the UN General Assembly, where President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will be attending on behalf of Egypt as well as the African Union, as he's presiding over the African Union for 2019. And also one of the challenges facing Egypt as well as several countries is poverty, and we're shedding also more light on this. Doctor, can you tell us about the stance of Egypt when it comes to poverty and the ways of combating poverty in Egypt and worldwide?
Yes, actually, you know, in Egypt we had statistics released by CAPMUS lately, reflecting that Egypt, the rate of poverty has increased from 27% to 32.5%. This was completely expected. Why? Because of the repercussions of economic reform. We all know quite well that after the flotation of our currency, you know, we had a severe depreciation of our Egyptian pound, and since we are relying to a large extent on importation, this affected the price level in Egypt. The inflation has increased in this period to more than 33%, and this affected seriously all what we are consuming as consumers in Egypt. And this affected the rate of poverty in Egypt. Besides that, as we have been discussing, you know, that it's not only when we talk about poverty, like Nashwa has mentioned now, that it's a multidimensional. It's not a poverty of income in Egypt, it's a poverty of capability, and this is more important than poverty of income. Why? Because it's quite related to the system of education, to if the country is having a strategy for training, for recruitment, and to how extent, you know, you are addressing people specifically for the Egyptian case, how you are addressing people in slums, in rural areas, since, the survey mentions that poverty is concentrated in the slum areas as well as in the rural areas, specifically in Upper Egypt. We all know before that, you know, Upper Egypt is a very important, focal point for poverty in Egypt. Therefore, we need support from government, from civil society in order to combat poverty. You know, the only way that has proven success according to experiences of the successful experiences worldwide, and here I have to refer to the evaluation of the Millennium Development Goals. You know, the evaluation of Millennium Development Goals on top of these goals were to combat poverty proved according to applied researches that the two countries that have succeeded in combating poverty to a large extent are China and India. And the main reason behind that is the economic empowerment of poor people. This is the approach that we have to concentrate on in order to address poverty in Egypt and in the Arab world. Why? Because the problem is exaggerated in the Arab world because of the problems of immigration and the political conflict confronting several Arab worlds, specifically in Yemen. Nowadays in Yemen, the situation is very serious because of the war and because of increasing the poverty rate. The same can be mentioned for, immigrants in Lebanon, in Jordan, and, in Syria too. The same for Iraqi people. So we have a severe problem for Arab world regarding poverty and how to how to address poverty. We shouldn't neglect at the same way Palestinian peoples that are under, severe aggression by Israeli people, preventing them from using their resources efficiently in order to be to have a better quality of life. So the situation is not an easy situation, but If we use the economic empowerment of poor people, I believe this can be the only solution. And when we have a strategy, a comprehensive strategy for the world, the Arab world, I believe this should be monitored and evaluated, and we should have action plan, because actually for Arab countries, our experience is that we keep putting strategies without achieving any results. Why? Because we don't have action plans, we don't have a strong system of monitoring and evaluation, and nobody is accountable for who is responsible for that. Always, you know, Arab League, you know, they are mentioning that we have the strategy. You know, we are paying a lot to form the strategy. Experts are paying a lot to, are having money to put the strategies, to discuss the strategies in conferences in 5-star hotel. But when it comes to how extent these strategies are applied in reality, there is a big question mark. From here it comes that when we have this strategy, it's not just by announcing the strategy, it's by having action plans, because, you know, nowadays we are in a severe situation, which is, it could be a problem of national security for the Arab world, because poverty nowadays is threatening Arab world by more and more turbulence and chaos that could happen in these countries, you know, affected by the poverty. And at the same time, we have a lot of, you know, dimensions that we should work on it, such as our resources are not exploited. Like for Egypt, we have a very good experience nowadays in Egypt to combat poverty. We have several, you know, dimensions by activating the role of, you know, the banking sector. We have the initiative of President Sisi of 200 billion that we need to be, it needs to be activated. You know, we are keep monitoring and evaluating to how extent the initiative is benefiting the small and micro enterprises. Still a lot of efforts need to, you know, reach the areas that are suffering from poverty. We have Takaful and Karama. Nowadays we are asking from Takaful and Karama to take care of the economic dimension. Why? Because it's not when you have, we have initiative like Decent Life. It's a very big initiative, and nowadays the government is, specifying a large amount of money for this initiative. But how to address, how to implement the initiative, how to allocate resources, what is the most important and efficient way economically to, use your money in such initiative. You know, you can, when you you take an example for a family, a very poor family in a very rural area in Upper Egypt, for example, you are going to find that they are suffering from lack of, clean water, lack of, sanitation facilities.
Basic needs.
The basic needs, but, what are the priorities? If you are going to allocate money for sanitation and water, like what happened before, you are going to, lose your money without affecting the life of these people. But if you start with economic empowerment, if you start with building capabilities for those who are living there and helping them gradually to, to start to get their facilities gradually with the help of the government and civil society, I believe this approach can be like what happened in China and India. This approach is very effective, and it could help to increase economic capabilities in the economy, worldwide, because still nowadays poor people are asking, and they are a burden on government regarding public finance and so on. But when you transfer those people into productive people, First of all, they are going to add to the productive capabilities of the economy. Secondly, they are going to have their income in order to try to find ways for their life and to find facilities for their life to improve their capabilities and the capabilities of their children. And from here it comes that this approach is quite fruitful approach, proved to be quite successful. And this is what we have to take into our consideration, not only as Egyptian case, but as Arab world. So I believe that the strategy for the Arab world to combat poverty should concentrate on, using the resources in Arab world. Still, a lot of resources are unexploited, building capabilities of poor people and enable them to use these capabilities as to have a source of income in micro enterprises, by being recruited in factories and so on. And this is the only way to use your money efficiently enough in a very short period. But if you are going to put plans regarding sanitation and water, you are going to spend a lot of money without having significant results in the short and medium period.
Okay. Doctor, you have mentioned something regarding the cabinet's meeting and talking about using scientific researches and scientific analysis when it comes to the multidimensional poverty. And also, definitely this is not going only to include slum areas, but we're talking also about in a way or another, talking about the living, how to upgrade the living standards of people, especially the middle class as well. So let's talk about this more, and talking about this can never be achieved only by the government. There is the civil society, there is the NGOs in general, there is the private sector, and also because definitely the private sector will play a crucial role, especially when it comes to different entities and talking about the inflation, and it all has to do again with the private sector.
Yes. So I agree with you, but still it's a responsibility of the government to have the vision, the vision, and then asking the civil society
to be a regulator,
and private sector, yes, the regulator, and asking them and giving them incentives into working to apply this vision, and the monitoring to our extent whether we are doing right or no. But still, what nowadays we are focusing on is what should be our priorities for this period. Like you mentioned, Nashwa, one of our priorities nowadays is to achieve financial inclusion. Like you mentioned, nowadays we can use efficiently mobile applications, for example, in order to offer opportunities of job for the people living in Upper Egypt and so on. And we have very successful experiences done by NGOs in Egypt and some ministers in Egypt. Still, this needs to be applied on a holistic situation, because when you find some successful experiences, it's going to affect how many people in these areas. But if you have this approach as a holistic approach, and that's why I'm talking about a vision coming from the government. So if we have nowadays from the government a strategy to combat poverty, concentrating on economic empowerment of poor people, specifying which project can be done all over Egypt according to the investment map, and what projects, what industries we have a comparative advantage in it, and the integration between large, medium, and small and micro enterprises that could open opportunities, and to use incubators, because incubators for those most needy person are quite essential, because they don't have entrepreneurship spirit, they don't have the capability to start their business, they don't have any financial capabilities to start their business. So if you have incubators for them and training them and having for them, the equipment necessary, and you start, and we have experiences for that, but still which industries, which economic activities, how to, achieve more financial inclusion and let people have more opportunities and more capabilities. If you have to, and this needs from our government and civil society and the private sector, needs from these to go and to find people and to know their, how to approach them, how to address them. This is a very important, topic that should be mentioned, and we have to take care of it in order to have results in the near future, inshallah.
Dr. Youmn Hamaki, as always, Professor of Economics at Ain Shams University, we appreciate your input and your presence on the breakfast show. Thank you so much. And now we move on to a short break and then be back to resume the breakfast show live on Nile TV International.